Finally, today's the day, Wednesday, January 13th. Hockey is officially back. We have a full slate of regular season NHL games on tonight, starting with the Penguins and the Flyers. I am pumped. It has been way too long, but before I watch some NHL games, there's one last thing I gotta do, and that is give you guys my predictions for the North Division. I decided to save this division for last, for one, because I think it's the most intriguing division heading into this season, and for two, I've been dreading making this video. The reason I've been dreading this is because this division is honestly so wide open. I know who I'm picking to win the division, and I know who I'm picking to finish last in the division. Everything else in between, honestly, it's just a blur. You look at all 7 of these Canadian teams, aside from Ottawa, they all have playoff aspirations, and if they miss the playoffs, I think it'll be considered a disappointing year, again, with the exception of Ottawa. And that's nothing against Ottawa, they're rebuilding. Like, there's no Sens fans or people within the Sens organization that are going to be upset if this team misses the playoffs, I don't think. Like I always say, these are just my predictions. If you disagree, instead of getting angry, just be sure to get down there in the comment section and let me know your predictions for the North Division. Of course, before we begin, be sure to go follow my social medias like Instagram and Twitter. I'm going to be tweeting a lot throughout the games tonight, so if you want to tweet along with me, be sure to go give that a follow. Link will be down below in the description. And most importantly, if this is your first time on the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And now let's begin. Starting us off, finishing 7th place in the North Division. This was easy. I have the Ottawa Senators, and that's nothing against Ottawa, but they are still very much so in the middle of a rebuild, while all of the other Canadian teams, like I said, have playoff aspirations. It is unfortunate that Ottawa is, kind of stuck in this division. There is not going to be any games where they're not the underdog, most likely. It's not like they're going to be playing, teams like Detroit and Chicago throughout the season. Even though I have them finishing last place in the division, when it comes to the Ottawa Senators, there's still is a lot to be excited about. You got Josh Norris, going to be a full-time member of the team this year. The 3rd overall pick, Tim Stützle, lots of hype around him heading into the season. In terms of the amount of youth Ottawa has up front, they should be pretty exciting to watch. I know I'm pumped to watch Stützle play. I drafted him on my fantasy team, so I'm banking on him having a big rookie season. The Senators, of course, now have Matt Murray in net, who they picked up from the Penguins this offseason. Hopefully he can have a bounce-back year. The blue line for Ottawa, now that's what kind of scares me about this team. I talked about it in my video going over the biggest X factor for every team, but like aside from Thomas Chabot, this blue line is pretty awful. Overall, I do think it's going to be a pretty tough year for the Sens, especially considering their division, but like I said, there is definitely stuff to look forward to. They should be pretty exciting to watch. So I have the Sens finishing 7th, moving on now to 6th place. This is where things get kind of crazy. It almost feels like a crime that I have this team finishing in 6th place, but I have the Vancouver Canucks. It hurts me to have the Canucks finishing 6th and missing the playoffs, especially considering they were the Canadian team that made it the furthest last year. They lost in the 2nd round to the Golden Knights, and I'm sure a lot of you have noticed if you've been subscribed to the channel for a long time, but I'm sort of like a closet Canucks fan. I really enjoy this team, but I had to predict a team to finish here in 6th. I have Vancouver just because I have question marks about their goaltending, and like I said multiple times, I think having 2 good goaltenders this season is going to be more important than it's ever been. You look at Holtby last season, was not good at all in Washington. Thatcher Demko, yes, he had an unbelievable stretch of games in the playoffs, but in the regular season, his numbers weren't the greatest. So are you going to get the Thatcher Demko from the regular season or the playoffs? That's a pretty big question mark. On top of losing Markstrom, the Canucks also lost Levo, Toffoli, Stetcher, and Tanev to free agency, but on the back end, I don't really think they lost a step. I actually think they got better. I personally would rather have Nate Schmidt than both Tanev and Stetcher. That's just my opinion. And if Nils Höglander can come in and play well in a top 6 role, then I really don't think they're going to miss Toffoli all that much. I don't know, man. I still think this team is going to be good. I think they're going to be extremely fun, and I could just as easily see them finishing 2nd place in this division as I could see them finishing 6th. That's how wide open it really is. Moving along now, finishing 5th place in the North Division. So the final team I have not making the playoffs, the Winnipeg Jets. This is a team that I moved around so much when trying to get my final predictions. I decided to stick with them at number 5, missing the playoffs. You look at the Winnipeg Jets group of forwards, I think it's one of the best in the league, especially their top 6. You got a top line. I think this year it's a little bit different. I think it's Wheeler, Scheifele, and Ehlers, and then it's Connor, Laine, and Stastny. That is a crazy top 6. Imagine having Laine and Connor as your 2nd line wingers. They have nice role players in the bottom 6 as well, guys like Andrew Kopp, Adam Lowry. The weak link when it comes to this Winnipeg Jets team, it is no secret that it's the blue line. I would say aside from Ottawa, Winnipeg has the weakest blue line in this division. Josh Morrissey is good. Neil Pionk is very good. He had a great season last year. But aside from those two guys, there's a lot of, meh and question marks. If Ville Heinola can come in and have a fantastic rookie season, that would be a massive help. But that is an if. There's no guarantee that that's going to happen. So the blue line are definitely the biggest worry when it comes to the Winnipeg Jets. But theoretically speaking, who is a team's most important defender? Technically, it's the goalie, and in my opinion, Winnipeg has the best goalie in the league in Connor Hellebuyck. Hopefully for the Winnipeg Jets, Connor Hellebuyck can have a repeat of last season where he was unbelievable, won the Vezina Trophy, and hopefully for Hellebuyck, Laurent Brossoit can have a bit of a bounce back season and take some of the pressure off of Hellebuyck because Brossoit was awful last year. So I got the Jets in 5th place, missing the playoffs, but I mean, would any of us be shocked if they finish lower than this and finish 6th place, or if they finish in 2nd place? Probably not. Getting into the top 4 now, the teams I see making the playoffs from the North Division. Starting us off in 4th place, I got the Edmonton Oilers. Last year's regular season, the Oilers finished higher in the standings than any of the other Canadian teams, and although they were extremely disappointing in the play-in round, I'm not about to bet against McDavid and Draisaitl missing the playoffs after the type of year that they just had. On paper, I do think this Oilers team got at least a little bit better. I'm really intrigued with Jesse Puljujarvi coming over. I like the addition of Dominic Cahoon. I'm pretty sure they actually have him playing with Draisaitl and Yamamoto, so that's a pretty big opportunity for Cahoon. They also picked up Kyle Turris after he was bought out by the Predators. Hopefully Kyle Turris can kind of revive his career a little bit in Edmonton. One thing that is super unfortunate when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers is obviously Oscar Klefbom and him missing the entire season. He's this team's best defenseman. That really stings. And I have seen some Oilers fans say, well, that's okay because we signed Tyson Barrie. Stop it. Tyson Barrie is not the type of defenseman that Klefbom is. Offensively and on the power play, sure, but overall game, he's not coming close to replacing Klefbom. I think the Oilers are going to need a really big year out of guys like Caleb Jones, Ethan Bear, and Darnell Nurse. And then in net, I'm not saying Costin and Smith have to be amazing. I think they just have to be, good enough. Play similar to how they played this past season. I'm still kind of confused by the idea that the Oilers brought back Mike Smith, who's 40 years old now, especially considering how flooded the goaltending market was this offseason. I was really hoping they would go out and get a guy like Matt Murray, so we'll see what happens. Obviously, I do have my questions when it comes to this team, but like I said, I was not about to bet against McDavid and Draisaitl. Continuing on now, finishing 3rd place in the North Division, I have the Calgary Flames. I'm not as high on the Flames offseason as a lot of other people. I absolutely love the addition of Jacob Markstrom, but I do feel like people are overhyping them getting Chris Tanev a little bit, because, well, yes, they did get Tanev, they also lost TJ Brody, Travis Hamonic, and Eric Gustafsson. But yeah, getting back to Markstrom a little bit, like I said, I love that addition. He's the best goaltender Calgary has had since Mika Kiprasov, and having Dave Riddick as a backup, that's a pretty solid 1-2 punch in net. Up front, I think the Flames are very strong, especially considering their top 6. You got Monahan, Lindholm, Gaudreau, and then Backlund, Tkachuk, and Mangiapane, who I'm a pretty big fan of. If Gaudreau and Monahan can both bounce back and get back to playing the way that they played in the 2018-19 season, if Markstrom plays like he has over the past couple of seasons with the Canucks, I definitely think this is a playoff team. Now, if Gaudreau and Monahan both struggle again a little bit this season, then I think Calgary could as a team struggle as well, but I'm pretty confident those guys can bounce back, obviously, since I have Calgary in 3rd place. Finishing 2nd place in the North Division, I have the Montreal Canadiens. If you guys have been following me throughout the offseason, then you would know I'm pretty high on this team, and I absolutely love the offseason that they've had. The additions of guys like Tyler Toffoli, who I think they got on a really good contract, Josh Anderson, yes, they may have overpaid to trade for him and gave him a lot of money, but I think he is going to really benefit this team. Joel Edmondson on the back end, he kind of fits their identity, he's tough to play against, and then they got a backup goaltender for Carey Price in Jake Allen, which I think was their most important move of the offseason. The one thing I would say the Canadiens are lacking, kind of compared to other teams in the Canadian division, is like a superstar forward. Players like Elias Pettersson in Vancouver, Mark Scheifele in Winnipeg, obviously Matthews in Toronto, and McDavid and Draisaitl in Edmonton. However, I do think Montreal's overall depth kind of makes up for that, and also I think Nick Suzuki will develop into that player one day for the Canadiens. I really like this team. Am I a little bit too high on the Montreal Canadiens, considering they finished, 24th in the league last year? They were the last team to make it into the 24-team playoff format. Maybe I am. We'll see. I'm really excited to see how they play the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight. Speaking speaking of the Toronto Maple Leafs, I have them finishing first place in the North Division. A bit of a boring answer, I know, but to me, on paper, I think they are the best team in Canada. Now, will that translate to the actual season? I mean, probably not, because the NHL is weird, but I mean, if not finishing first place in this division, I think Toronto is making the playoffs 99.9%. They are absolutely loaded up front. Matthews, Marner, and Thornton is actually starting tonight on that line with those guys. I'm really excited to see how that plays out. I think it's a worthy experiment. Although he is very, very old, why not play one of the greatest playmakers in NHL history on a line with one of the best snipers in the game today? What's the worst that could happen? And then behind that line, obviously, you have John Tavares, William Nylander, and I think Jimmy Vesey's playing with those guys. And then you got Hyman and Mikheyev in the bottom six. Like, this team's loaded up front, like I said. On the back end, they got better. The addition of TJ Brody is huge, and I think it's going to be very noticeable seeing Morgan Riley play with a good defensive partner. And then, of course, in net, you got Freddie, Freddie Anderson. He had a bit of a shaky season in 2019-20, but he is a good starting goaltender. And now they're going to have a good backup for him in Jack Campbell for the entire season, instead of starting with a bad one like they did last year in Michael Hutchinson. It's going to be a full season under Sheldon Keefe as well. They're not going to be, starting the year with a coach that they don't like, which is what happened last year. They were awful under Babcock. This is a team that has just sky-high expectations, and when you look at the team on paper, there's no excuse as to why this team can't be a top 2 team in this division, and as to why they can at least win one playoff round. So that is going to do it for today's video. Those were my predictions for the North Division. Am I confident in my picks? About as confident as I am in Detroit making the playoffs this season. So no, I'm not. Am I excited for this division though? 100%. I think it's going to be a bloodbath. I'm pumped to watch Calgary and Edmonton beat up on each other throughout the season. Battles between Montreal and Toronto all year. It's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said at the start of the video, I'm very curious to hear your guys' thoughts. So be sure to let me know all of your predictions down below in the comment section. If you did enjoy today's video, as always, be sure to leave it a like. That is the best way to show your support, and most importantly, if this is your first time on the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all in the next video.